Hi, my name is Jamie Piers, and with me today I've got Scott Allen. I'm CEO of a business called FluentLogic. We are doing stuff in the data space for insurance agencies, and I'll run my intro, and then let Scott intro yourself, and we'll dive into what we got to talk about today. So Scott, take it away.
Hey everybody, it's Scott Allen. I'm with Entrinsik. We have a product called Informer. We work with agencies to improve the reporting, automate the reporting, infuse AI now into their agency management software data in a secure, governed environment. So we're gonna have some fun today, and I'm excited because as I tell Jamie every time, every agency I've ever done a demo for, the first question is, can you clean our data? And I've always had to kind of put my head sideways and say, well, we can find the bad data, but now I'm happy to report that, as you'll see in this webinar, the answer is yes. We can find the bad data, and Jamie's company can fix it and write it back to the AMS360. So very exciting.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's amazing how often that comes up, right? Is the every time you kind of talk about reporting, you're talking about bad data behind that, and unpacking like the impact that has on the reports that you're running. So, you know, what we really want to talk about today is, and we're going to try our best to steer away from getting heavily into the space of AI, and I'm finding just everyone's getting hammered by AI at the moment, and people are starting to not give a damn about the ability to do AI stuff. And what we want to do today is talk a little bit about AI, but talk more about cleansing data and how that impacts the ability to report and use the data that you've got in your system. So the risk with doing AI on data is that it doesn't give you the background of where the data comes from. The data that you then report on is just summated and pulled into place. It doesn't tell you why unless you drill through and click through into the data. And the problem with that is that you can't see the issue with what underpins all of that information. So where we're going to go to today is to talk a little bit about asking the same question of a set of data and what that data looks like, and seeing how we can get two dramatically different results from that data. And we're going to intermingle that with a little bit of demoing of solutions. So I'm going to run for the first kind of 15-20 minutes and talk about how we get two distinctly different answers from the same set of data, one being cleaned and one not being cleaned. And then we're going to talk, and then Scott's going to talk a little bit more generally about his tool Informer. So very often, and it's kind of a fascinating thing to me, is the insurance industry hasn't really focused on ways to better clean data. And what we're finding as we're engaging with customers is there's two different camps of customers. So you get the small agency who can't afford to outsource cleaning data to a Resource Pro, a Patra, a whoever it may be, agency VA. There's quite a few services out there that are VA services, and those get too pricey for them to do. And then in the other camp, you get the large agencies who are just keeping on acquiring, and they're acquiring, to put it frankly, crappy data all the time. So what then ends up happening is there's this growth of crappy data inside the AMS, and be it Epic, 360, Momentum, Hawk, whatever it is, they've all fundamentally got crappy data in it because salespeople suck at putting data into systems. And you can ask Scott and myself that we're both salespeople and we both suck at putting data into systems. So what then happens is you start asking questions of that data or reporting on questions from that data, And that's where Informer Go and plus the AI layer that's been built into Informer Go is super powerful. So Informer Go does cool things like, which line of business do I have the most active policies on? Which line of business do I have the most value of written policies on? So very easy to ask those questions, but what happens if there's policies that are active that should have been marked as cancelled and haven't been cancelled, and they're still summarized into that value? And that's where the underpinning data set getting cleaned, and then layer 2 being the reporting layer, becomes such an important story. And there's a lot of defects that go through our data, but there's some big ones like duplicate customers, people who have left the business, especially for mid to larger agencies, employees who've just exited the business and they've still got policies assigned to them, and you're paying commission to nobody and got policies assigned all over the place, and customers not getting serviced because they don't have an active producer or an active CSR assigned to them. Missing NAICS codes so that you can't report in your book accurately, carrier names that are spelled differently, and uncancelled policies, as I spoke through now. So what that does is it effectively undermines any AI strategy you may have. And that's what no one's talking about right now. And the frustrating thing is no one's saying, well, actually, you can't have good AI without good BI, as Scott likes to say, and you can't have good BI without clean data. So if you look at the fundamental building blocks there and getting clean data, that is a real problem for the industry. And what we're finding is that what we're seeing is needed by the industry is extract the data from the AMS, clean it up, push it back in again. And that's really what we've gone about building with our DataCleanse tool. So what DataCleanse does is, and we've got many use cases, so this is a narrowed down demo of what we've done. But basically it starts on a screen that tells you where your key pain points are, where your key dirty data is, and what your main issues are. So here you'll see that I've got build recon, that's an issue, business origin, and I'm going to click through some of these screens. I want to just start through by going through some of these screens, and you'll get the examples as you'll go through, because unfortunately dirty data is so prevalent inside the industry that everyone goes like, oh yeah, I got that problem. So some simple example is we click to commercial customers here, and under commercial customers we've got a bunch of buttons here that go missing email, missing addresses, missing phone, missing NAICS. So as I said earlier, missing NAICS is a real problem. So we're going to click on missing NAICS code, and you'll see that there's a list of customers here who've got missing NAICS codes. The difference between what we're doing is we're now allowing you to go and put in a NAICS code, and we're building in lookups and so on and so forth, and the ability to go and simply enter in NAICS codes here. And we have got various APIs that we're integrating to go and look up the NAICS code. But the idea here is that you can go and put in the NAICS code and sync it straight back to the AMS. And that's the fundamental pain point at the moment. Is it's relatively easy to identify the missing data or the dirty data. It's much harder to go and actually integrate that via API pull, API send back in again, clean it, make sure it's whole. And the same goes for a phone number or a missing pretty much anything. And you can see that I can click push to AMS, and literally that's going to just hit the API and push it straight back into AMS360 in this case. That's where that's connected to. Same concept is I can go and click off of missing NAICS and go and say, well, give me a list of missing email addresses. Again, same idea there. I can reach out to an API. I can go and pull back email addresses, go and update that here, and do my best to go and push data back in again. Personal lines is much the same. So if I move from commercial to personal lines over here, you'll see that obviously here I don't have NAICS codes, but I've got all these other items here. And then critically, customer cleanup, what that does is it starts to say, well, where are my active customers with inactive policies, and where are my inactive customers with active policies? So I don't really understand why AMSs allow this, and it's a point of frustration, but why would you have an active customer without active policies, and why would you have an inactive customer with active policies? But you can, that's the bottom line. So what this does is it allows us to deactivate and activate customers in bulk. And that's the key phrase here, as you'll see. We'll keep on talking about editing these customers in bulk as we go through. So we've got the ability to update information in bulk. And that's where very often people are defaulting to using a Patra or whoever it may be, because they don't want to go through the clickety click, click, click of having to find the customer, look for the email address, go, okay, the email address is there, I don't need to update that customer. Then go and say, let's go and find the next customer and find the email address, and that email address is blank. So therefore, yes, that one we're going to have to enter. So that clicking nature of AMS360, or any AMS actually per se, is pretty consistent. So I'm going to skip down to one of the other ones, and business origin and department check are largely the same. So again, this is an interesting example from the point of view of it affects way more than people actually understand. So business origin it drives commissions. So whether it was by referral, by cross-departmental referral, whether it was by cold outreach, all of that has an impact in commission calculation, but very often people leave it blank, or they don't bother reviewing it before they actually start writing business for that customer or start that policy being written. And what we found is that customers are very regularly asking, like, as a AMS administrator, I want to go and check what my CSRs have captured, and then go and update that in bulk. And again, it's the same example here. Is I can actually go and click on the list. Sorry, I can go and click on the list here, and I can say organic, and I can click push to AMS360, and it writes the data into the AMS360. Again, in this case, I'm connected to AMS360. We're doing Epic, we're doing Momentum at the moment, so we're doing multiple AMSs on that front. But yeah, it's a point of interest. Is like, it seems like it's such a small thing, like needing to be able to bulk edit data, but the reality is it's actually a massive thing. And where it really starts shining through is when we look at renewals, because the renewal process actually, a lot of the time we need to go and cancel policies in bulk, we need to go and update policies in bulk, we need to go and renew policies in bulk because they're ongoing policies, they don't have an expiration date. So here's a simple example of policy renewals in the next 90 days that are still active. And there will give that to me pretty easily. And I can either go and click renew policy, put in my bits of information here that I need to put in, update my premium, and send it on through to AMS360. Again, I'm saying AMS360 because we're connected to AMS360 in this case, but obviously you can go and put it into whichever AMS you want. And the idea here is I can either update the policy or renew the policy, set the new effective date, set the new expiry date. You'll see that those are a year apart and default to the expiration date that exists here. And super simple, go and renew my policy, update it, and I'm off to the races. Another interesting example on policy renewals, and this is the one I want to focus on to kind of go through a handover process to let Scott show what he's doing, is legacy policies. So on legacy policies here, I can go and just update old policies, things that have been floating around. So we find there's a plethora of reasons why. So the policy didn't get cancelled properly because it downloaded differently from Ivan's and the policy number just hung around. Now, how is that data affecting reporting when you hand it over to Scott? Is, well, Scott's in there saying like, well, okay, I'm going to report on all active policies. If you report on all active policies, it doesn't matter that this policy is from 2007. If it's an active policy, it's an active policy. It gets pulled into the book. Now, sure, from a reporting point of view, Scott can go and put filters in there and can go and say super easily, like only pull in policies that were, that were written in the last 2 years. Super easy to do that. But what if you miss it? What if it's not quite right? What happens? So why not just keep that book clean? And the example there is super strong. If you go and click update policy and you say this is cancellation confirmation, I put in my effective date of cancellation, put in my reason, it's whatever, insurance request, and I can go and put in a reason, review and submit. And what I've done is I've actually, with Scott's help, gone and created a report here. And this was the concept around asking questions of clean data and dirty data. And I'm going to use this as the kind of handover point. Just briefly, I'm going to talk through the first couple of ones here, but a very good example of this is if I go and ask of my policy set, how many total policies do I have? Well, I've gone and canceled 5 policies here to go and change the 2. So to have a delta set of data. One of the policies happened to be a massive policy. So my total premium has dropped off dramatically. I've dropped off by $2.5 million there. My average premium has dropped off, obviously, consequently, quite significantly as well, $4,000 roughly. So all we're doing there is we're saying, well, this is just from going and finding a policy that wasn't renewed, and we're going and saying, well, hang on a sec, what if you were supposed to have canceled that customer? And that's what I did, is I canceled, well, didn't cancel the customer, canceled the policy. But the idea there is saying, well, hang on a sec, that can have a massive impact on the book, and just being aware that that was canceled and knowing that that's what's coming at you is creating the ability to get accurate data downstream and be able to report on this information accurately. Okay. So yeah, it's an interesting process in how these two solutions support each other, and Scott often talks about this being the 1-2 punch. And please, just as a side point, if you've got any questions as we're going along, there is I think it's top right-hand corner, if I'm not mistaken, there's a questions button. Yeah, there's a little box with a question mark in it. If you've got any questions as you're going along, please feel free to ask those questions. But we often talk about, Scott and myself, we talk about this being the 1-2 punch, is well, you need to clean your data so that you can get good BI, so that you can get good and automated AI. And everyone sort of wants the easy button. Everyone wants to skip from, I've got my AMS to I'm doing magnificent AI cool things over here. And they forget about all of that stuff in between to make sure that the data is clean, to be checking it on a monthly basis, to have processes to go and say, yes, my data is clean, to go and report accurately, to distributing those reports, to asking the right questions, to having good and healthy AI. Scott, do you want to take over and talk a little bit more about what you do over at Entrinsik?
Sure. Michael did have a question for us. What level of data access is required? So let's, Jamie, let's go ahead and address Michael's questions real quick on the data access levels needed to do what you're doing, and then I can talk about ours.
Oh, cool. I missed the question, and because I was away, so is that the question? What data access level do we need to go and do this with 360?
Yep.
So we've actually built this, so we just use Wasapi, like the good old trusty Wasapi. For those of you who don't know, it's the free API level with AMS360. What Vertiful's actually done now is they've made the REST API free as well. We just have to send a request into Vertiful and say, can you? So we started using a bit of REST as well. We don't have to have DDS yet. So there are maybe some things in future that we'll need to do DDS stuff on. I know Scott Informer needs way more data. So Informer needs DDS. For us, from a cleansing point of view, we're extracting and pushing data back in using Wasapi and a little bit of REST. So it's actually, it doesn't cost you anything to start cleaning your data. Well, we'd like it if you paid us something, but it doesn't cost you anything from Vertiful.
Yeah. And like Jamie said, we do require DDS. A few years ago, we would just, well, let me clarify. For Sagitta, we are still installed on the Sagitta network. For anybody that has Sagitta, it's a light switch, and we get access to your data with your permission. DDS is a little bit different, but they're getting better. They're getting faster, and it's getting cheaper for our agencies to actually get the DDS in place. And basically, it's this big API dump that we pull in all of the data. As Jamie just said, we don't just pull in pieces, parts. We try to pull in nearly 100% of the data. And we drop it into an SQL that we host. And it's easy to report against that because all of the data is in the exact same place. So we've done this quite a bit. What's new is Informer Go and the use of AI inside of Informer, this governed, secure environment, basically code level AI talking to code level Elasticsearch and Informer, but a very secure, tight wrap around the AI. And what I did here was, this is basically just kind of pointing Informer at multiple data sets that we've built off of the AMS data, and simply asked it to build a magic report and said, I need to have a data quality dashboard, look at the 7,500 policies and bring me back a return with what's going on with my data and any impact. So first thing, you see is, 18.7 million in premium is tied to duplicate entity records. Carrier misspellings are causing issues. And, I can click into these and it gives me the data behind it. So as we see here, we got Acme Supply, and we've got, these are Acme Manufacturing. So it's just, they're different names, different entities, and it's kind of drilled out down here even better, where we've got the different misspellings, and they're all tied to the same NAICS code, which is really kind of a messy piece. So this is the data quality report. Kind of gives you an overall score up there on the side, and this is built using our AI engine, our Informer Go magic reports, where I basically just said, hey, go look at this data, these data sets, and tell me what's wrong and what's missing, and give me an overall health score. And obviously, once we see this data and we can actually go behind it and look at it and see exactly where everything's living and what needs to be fixed, it makes it very simple then to pass on to Jamie of things that maybe his system didn't see because of, the web API availability. And so I think there's always going to be, Jamie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's always going to be certain things in AMS360 that are going to need to be actually, poked and prodded and found and then corrected. But I think your solution is going to find obviously 95% of the real critical things that you talked about earlier. So this was sort of the before, and we found all the issues, and then once you kind of clean it up, I went and said, hey, let's go look at this report and build another report. And so as you can see, it fixed, everything is back to 100%. All the data issues are straightened up. The premium by carrier and the travelers and misspelled carriers have been fixed. Policy distribution. So this was just a matter of, okay, the data is clean now. Go run another report and let's just verify, make sure that everything's clean. Again, building reports by simply typing in and asking what you want to see and developing it further and further. Things like, I'm a big light screen guy, but Jamie loves dark screen. So I put in a nice little toggle here. So again, before, after, We call this basically a zero report, where we want everything to be zeros or everything to be 100% correct. Some of the other things that we're able to do now, and this is really exciting, is we can create entire P&Ls, and we integrate with QuickBooks. We integrate obviously with AMS360, Salesforce. We have a lot of native integrations, but I was asked by an agency, hey, can we create an entire financial suite using Magic Reports? And so we pointed the data, we pointed it at the right data, and basically created this very interactive dashboard. I actually had some fun with it and just said, because I didn't know if they wanted an accrual base or a cash base, so I went and just made it so I could toggle and go back and forth between accrual and cash based accounting. So I've got my executive summary. Obviously, I've got some filters up here if I just want to look at a particular month, or if I want to look at just a singular year, it's going to redraw that for me. I can look at my P&L statements. I can look at balance sheets, aging, producer performance. I mean, it's an entire financial suite. Again, people like dark, I don't. And so it's just it's a very powerful tool that we've built here, obviously. And as I built this, you know, hey, can we make it so you can export this to a PDF so I can email it? Can you make it so I can export it to a CSV if I have any drill down? If I start to drill down information and I see what I like, I can go ahead and just print that off to a CSV. So financial reports are kind of cool. We obviously have a lot of clients that have tons and tons and folders of PDF versions of carrier reports that come in, and we were able to build a magic report where we can ingest those PDFs and then, you know, basically just kind of make it very easy to look at performance for particular carriers in lines of business, and just basically reset those. So if you can imagine a report, you can think of a report, Informer Go can build that report for you. Here's a quick little claims dashboard where you've got all of these filters. So I can look at producers, I can look at carriers, it'll break that down, and then everything changes. I can go and look at that information behind it. So it's going to give me the status, open, the amounts, etc. So the claims dashboard is very cool. Informer Go basically is a native app that you can download onto your phone, a desktop app. But the beauty of Informer and Informer Go is still and always has been the role level security. So when you log into Informer, your administration or your agency owner can say, Scott's a producer, Scott only gets to see Scott's stuff. And so we filter that out. And when you log into Informer, you basically then have to go to a screen and say, I want to download, I'm going to get to it. Basically, you have to download as a user your profile, and then basically you get a QR code and you can click and it'll install on your desktop, which is what we're looking at right now. And so all that row level access is pushed all the way downstream so that you're not going to be able to trick the AI. You're only going to get to ask questions of the data that you can see. And the home screen is basically a very ChatGPT looking screen. It's got the power of the AI. You can connect to a web search and go and ask questions maybe of a potential customer, do some research on them. If you want to actually build a proposal, we have an app now that is very cool that we've been working with a couple of agencies on refining, but it just consists of, we can brand it to your colors, we can put in your taglines, we have drop downs where you select commercial, personal, then you select the team members, the producer, the CSR, the executive on the account, and just simply how many years history do you want on it. And in a matter of minutes, you're basically creating a new business proposal or a rewrite, which again is fully customizable. You can ask it to brand it for the customer you're going after, or have it as your agency. So would love to talk to everybody about this. I'm going to end it here and stop sharing, because if you want to see Informer Go, I'd love to show it to you. But the bottom line is, what Jamie's got is going to make my product much better.
What Scott's got makes my product much better. So it's pretty cool, happy coexistence there.
Yeah.
So I think a key thing is where does the data go? Does it stay in your environment? Does it move out of your environment? Where does it shoot to? How much data is sent to an LLM, and what sort of security is on that LLM? That's a key question. I think row-level security is a massively underrated feature inside Informer, and people don't appreciate it until they get into the weeds of how important that is. What that means is, as Scott said, is Scott can't see Jamie's data and Jamie can't see Scott's data unless Jamie's allowed to see Scott's data. And why that's important is because, you know, it's a competitive industry and people shouldn't be seeing the things. It also means, like, you focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on. You don't get to see all the stuff that you shouldn't or that you don't need to see. So that's quite critical as well. Audit trails are critical, and as we've gone through in the session, what if the underlying data is wrong? So there are a couple of key things you can ask AI vendors as you're going through your own journey, and then just to say thank you to everyone. These are the LinkedIn QR codes for Scott and myself. If you want to hook us up on LinkedIn, you're welcome to. Be great to connect with you. Happy to share with you more about what we're going on, the journey we're going on. We believe that having clean data in your AMS is absolutely paramount to successfully running your organization. And Scott believes that being able to report cohesively on your data is just as important. So, and they're equally important. But thank you so much for making time for us today, and please feel free to hit us up and connect to us on LinkedIn and ask us any further questions.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Ciao. Bye.